Okay, we are live yet again. It's been a long time since I've done a live stream. Why is that? Well, I'll explain in a bit. But give me 1 second first. Just want to make sure everything is working properly before I start going on my spiel. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Should be okay now. All right. So, welcome. This is Briar, of course, Briar's Music Showcase, and this is the first live stream in a long time. Several reasons. I mean, there's probably one big reason. Of course, I always had problems with internet, and yeah, so that's kind of the reason why I don't do live streams too much on my channel because, of course, I'm a perfectionist, and if something goes wrong, I really don't want to deal with it. Um, but just recently, my family's trying out this new internet uh, program or whatever, and we're just kind of on trial at this point, just seeing how it goes. And that's kind of what this live stream was is one of the reasons why I'm doing a live stream is to kind of really test out how this internet fares doing the live streams and stuff like that. And so far, if I look at the side, I'm actually have have the live stream on my phone just to make sure everything looks okay. And so far, everything's looking fine. Look at this live streamception. Whoa. Any case. So besides that, so that's one of the reasons. Second reason, and this is probably the number one reason. I actually intended this to be a actual, regular video like I do every month. But couple things. One, as I just showed, I did recently get a new phone. This is the iPhone 16, 16E to be precise. And I usually use my phone as a way to record my audio. And I've had this little plug-in lavalier mic, but of course it has this connector. Of course, that won't work on an iPhone. So for a long time on my old phone, I just used this little kind of converter type of thing, and I used this for quite a few years. And you just kind of plug it in like so, and it just plugs into the iPhone. Well, because I now have a 16E, the actual like plug-in is different now, and so this doesn't connect anymore. So now this is useless to me now, and so now I need to get a new conversion wire thing. Um, and I didn't realize it until I was just about to record the video because like I said, funny enough, I even have the everything set up to record the video. Like there's all the albums and there's the camera there, and I was set to record, but again, I just made that revelation that yeah, I can't really use this mic with this thing. So like I said, I need to get a new one. So hence why I'm doing a live stream today instead. And again, it's probably a good idea because again, I haven't done a live stream in quite a long time, and it should be interesting. Again, I'm looking at the live stream still, and everything still looks pretty good. Like I don't see any buffering going on, which is nice. But any case, so we'll see who shows up. It's 10:30 roughly where I am. So far we got 4 people watching, which is nice. Well, that includes me technically. So 3 people if you want to be that precise. But anyway, we have the monthly CD haul. We know how this goes. I go through all the CDs that I acquired throughout the month, and I'll give my first impressions. And of course, in the people who are just watching or just kind of sitting back enjoying, if you want to comment your thoughts on any of these albums, then please feel free to let me know, and we'll see if we get a conversation going. Now, usually for the past couple months, I haven't been buying too much, but let's just say this month I kind of indulged a bit because October is my birth month, so of course I'm gonna spend a little more than usual here. So I actually forgot how many I picked up actually. I think it's like close to 50, maybe. Let me double check actually. Let me just, because I actually do have a document on standby. Yeah, roughly about 53. 53 albums I'm going to be talking about. So this might be a long one here, so hopefully you're ready for that. But I'm going to try not to waste any more time. I'm probably going to jump right into it. So, of course, for those who are watching, either watching it live or just watching the replay, again, don't forget to like this, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And yeah, and also support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, all that stuff if you want to support the channel. And here we go. We're going to go ahead. Like usual, I usually go by alphabetical order. And if it's a solo person, it's by last name. So let's go ahead. Starting ahead. We have 10cc with Sheet Music. This is their second album from 1974. And I've been kind of dabbling into more 10cc in recent time because for a long time I got How Dare You and the original soundtrack, and those were my only two for a while. But then last month I picked up their debut album, which sparked a bit more interest, and lo and behold, I found their second album, and I decided to go ahead and just pick it up. And it was a pretty good listen. Like, I really dug it. This might either be my favorite or might even be my second favorite 10cc album I've heard so far. Again, I've talked about 10cc for a little bit. They're kind of quirky, definitely in the art rock, art pop sort of field. Their stuff gets not too out there, but it's definitely not too on the conventional side. But they still have some hooks in there that you can latch on to. But I really dig this album. I really like their sound, and I know there's a few other albums people usually cite as classic, so maybe sometime down the road we'll pick up even more 10cc. But that's all I'm going to say there. I'm just going to quickly highlight the songs that I like the most. There were 10 songs here, and the songs that stood out to me were the Wall Street Shuffle, The Worst Band in the World, very ironic, Old Wild Men, Clockwork Creep, Silly Love, Somewhere in Hollywood, and I'm going to see if I can try to pronounce it, the Sacroiliac, something like that. But there you go. So that is 10cc Sheet Music. So that's one down. I'm just going to put them here, I guess. All right, these next two are from the same band. And the band in question is AC/DC. And I have Blow Up Your Video. And I have a later album with Black Ice. So these are kind of more later period AC/DC albums. So we'll start with this one. I know AC/DC gets a lot of flack. People say, oh, they're not that good. All their albums sound the same. It's all kind of boring, generic rock music. And I'm usually a big defender of AC/DC. I like AC/DC quite a bit. But I will say, yeah, that this album doesn't quite calm that criticism, because even as an AC/DC fan, even I think this album's kind of dull. You know, it's pretty much AC/DC by the numbers. You know, like, they do their thing, but there's really nothing really overly memorable about most of these songs. It's kind of just there. Let me just see. Let me just find my notes, and I'll tell you the songs that stood out the most. But again, I'll say there's really not many. Let's see. Where is it? No, I got it somewhere. There it is. Found it. The first track, Heat Seeker, I thought was pretty good. It's probably the best song on here. So the album starts pretty good. And then there's like a huge stretch where there's nothing much. Then you got Kissin' Dynamite, which I thought was fine. Nick of Time is okay. And then another little stretch of nothing. And then it closes out decently enough with Two's Up and This Means War. Again, these aren't like top tier AC/DC whatsoever, but those few songs were just memorable enough. But that whole said, this album's pretty not essential, I will say. So this came out in 1988, by the way. But that said, I will say Black Ice, far better album. Definitely a lot more memorable than Blow Up Your Video. I don't know why. I think the songs just hit a little bit better for me. Which again, the whole like, AC/DC do the same album criticism. I don't always get that. And for some reason, like you think you would hear this later down in their career, but he didn't. This is like from 2003, 2008 actually. But I think the songs are pretty strong. Rock and Roll Train was good opener. Skies on Fire, Big Jack, Anything Goes. That's one of my favorite songs on here. War Machine, Spoiling for a Fight, Wheels. She likes rock and roll dreams. Again, I will say that's another criticism that even I kind of agree. I think they use rock and roll a bit too much. But anyway, rocking all the way. Speaking of rocking, and the title track. So much stronger album. Again, I wouldn't say it's perfect. Again, there's still some songs I think are just okay, but definitely a pretty good, more later period AC/DC album. So very strong, very much a lot stronger. Even I was kind of surprised, honestly. Now then, moving on. We're going for Aerosmith, Rockin' a Hard Place. And, this is kind of a rather divisive album for Aerosmith, mainly because this one is without Joe Perry. He actually quit the band for a period. It actually took two guitar players to replace him. And I decided to get it because I think I heard the album once. This was back when I did a collaboration with Jacob Martin on his channel, where we, excuse me, uh, talked about Aerosmith, talked about like our favorite albums and favorite songs, that whole thing. And I remember I actually kind of dug this album, while I think Jacob wasn't too fond on it. And I think Jason, he was also there. He was also not that into it. But I actually thought this was actually pretty decent. Um, and so I decided to listen to it again because I had not heard it since. And after hearing it again after I guess a year, it's been a year I think. I will say it hasn't. I don't like it as much as I initially thought. Like it's not a bad album. I still vouch that. I still don't think it's a bad album, but I could definitely see the criticisms. There's definitely songs that are fine, but you can tell they're kind of going through the motions. Again, drugs was probably still very much a thing by that point. And so let me just go ahead. What were the top songs? So Jailbait. I think it starts out really good with Jailbait. I think it's a really good song. Lightning Strikes is a good follow up. Bitches Brew, that's kind of where it starts to kind of waver a little bit. But the next song, Bolivian Ragamuffin, dumb name, but I still think it's actually pretty fine. But then the next three songs, yeah, just I wasn't quite feeling those. But the last three songs kind of bring it up a little bit more. Um, so yeah, aside from that, I think the guitar playing from the new guys, they're fine. I think they do the job well. Steven Tyler still sings pretty good. But again, some of the songs I don't quite like as much as when I first heard it, which is kind of a shame. But hey, I'm still glad I got this. I still think it's a pretty decent album. Is it essential? Maybe not. But it's fine. Okay, now then, keep it going. That's pretty much all the A's covered. Now we're going to move on to the B's. Next up, we're going to talk about Badfinger. This is their album, Magic Christian Music. This was, of course, the title of the album is supposed to be a reference to the movie of the same name, which I think Ringo Starr is actually one of the leads, actually, if I remember correctly. But this is not really a soundtrack album, by the way. I know it has their big hits, uh, Come and Get It on it, which was kind of pretty much the theme song to the movie. Um, but yeah, this is technically their debut, if you want to call it a debut, because I know they released an album before, which they were called the Ivies originally, but they decided to change their name to Badfinger. So this is the first album under the Badfinger name, and it's a pretty decent album. I I quite liked it. Like I still there's still some songs I think were just fine, but of course, Come and Get It, that's a great song. Of course, written by Paul McCartney and produced by him. Crimson Ship, really nice follow up track. Midnight Sun, Rock of All Ages, and Carry On Till Tomorrow was pretty good. Um, then we kind of skip a few, Knocking Down Your Home, and the last song, Maybe Tomorrow, which a lot of these songs were written when they were still called the Ivies, so they kind of brought them back here. Um, and there's still some songs that are kind of not not bad, but still kind of generic sounding. But when the songs hit, they hit very good. And so I'm very happy to find more Badfinger because I've said this before. Badfinger CDs, they seem to be hard to come by. I only have two. I have this album and I have, oh my god, what is it called? Oh man. Let me just I gotta check it because I don't want to be wrong about this. So let's see. Um, making sure, where are they? There they are. Straight Up. That's the other album I have. So there we go. Magic Christian Music from Badfinger. Decent starts, if you want to call it a start. Now then, next up, let's talk about some Beach Boys. That's right, I picked up some Beach Boys recently. So I have these two. Now, the thing about this is actually 2-in-1 sort of things, because I guess the Beach Boys, I don't know why the Beach Boys tend to go for like these 2-in-1 sort of packaging. I guess it's because their early albums are so short. They're like, well, they're not even half an hour, so let's just stick 2 albums on one disc just to fill it out more. And that's pretty much what they did. So here we have their debut album, Surfin' Safari, and it also includes the follow-up album, Surfin' USA. And it's all on one disc here. But of course, as usual, I talk about each album individually. So it's good that I get more Beach Boys, especially some from their early period, which I've always neglected because, of course, I say by 1964, 65, that's kind of where that's usually my go-to period for the Beach Boys. I do like their early stuff, but it's not like my usual go-to. But it was kind of nice revisiting these early albums. And I will say some songs that I ignored initially, I kind of like a little bit more now. So again, starting with the debut. So Surfin' Safari, title track, pretty decent start to a career, I must say. Kind of tells you who they are. Again, they're Beach Boys, surfing. There you go. 10 Little Indians. I used to think that was kind of a dumb song, but it's kind of growing on me a little bit. Little Girl, parentheses, You're My Miss America was really nice. 409, pretty good. Surfin', another strong song. Again, very primitive sounding, and that's pretty much my sentiment on this album as a whole. It's very fascinating to hear them this early, hearing how naive and innocent they once were. And we all know the drama they'll go through later down the road. But, this is still fun, innocent times. Heads You Win, Tails You Lose. And my other song that I really dug was Summertime Blues. So that's Surfin' Safari. A decent debut. But still not quite at the echelon yet. Going on to the next album, Surfin' USA, which of course, as I already showed right here, I will say I don't like it as much, which is kind of surprising. I actually do prefer the debut over Surfin' USA. It does have the iconic title track, so you got to give it that. But there's more covers here, and there's even instrumentals, which is my big pet peeve. Why do I want to hear the Beach Boys do instrumental music if they have great vocals? Beats me. And so there's really wasn't as many songs that I really gravitated towards, but Farmer's Daughter was fine. Lonely Seas, pretty good. Shut Down and Lana were just standout tracks. But the rest of the album is kind of not quite. I mean, it's not quite there. I mean, clearly the best song is the title track, and then there's everything else. So kind of a shame, but there it is. And then from here we have this one. This CD includes Little Deuce Coupe, and it even includes All Summer Long. And it always bugs me that they're kind of out of order because you have Little Deuce Coupe, and I'm pretty sure All Summer Long is not the next album. But I guess they did it weird. I think they're following like the UK release order, which is kind of dumb because Beach Boys are an American band. I'm not going to dwell on that. So Little Deuce Coupe, we'll talk about that one first. It is another album I used to ignore, mainly because there are repeat songs. 409, Shut Down are songs that appeared before. Even Little Deuce Coupe appeared on a previous album, but they decided to just bring it back because the whole theme of the album is cars mainly, and I'm not much of a car person, honestly. But again, this recent re-listen, I actually have a much better appreciation for the album. Again, the repeats goes without saying, but Ballad of Old Betsy, Be True to Your School, Cherry Coupe, I think. Another lovely song. Our Car Club, No Go, Showboat, and the last song, Custom Machines, pretty good. But probably the song that really caught me by surprise. Like, I've forgotten entirely of this track, but Spirit of America. That is a wonderful, wonderful song. Very underrated. Great harmonies, of course, and just the arrangements is really strong. So that's definitely the big highlight from Little Deuce Coupe. Now then, All Summer Long. Now this is kind of when the Beach Boys were really starting to hit their stride. Of course, you have the big hit single "I Get Around," which is classic, of course. But other songs that I really enjoyed were the title track, "Hushabye," "Little Honda," "We'll Run Away," "Wendy," which is another really excellent track, "Girls on the Beach," and "Don't Back Down." Yeah, it's another really strong album, and probably the kind of the real start of their, I guess, Brian Wilson's creative drive is really taking hold at this point. But yeah, good album, but they always got to throw in one of those filler tracks. I'm looking at you, Carl's Big Chance, but gonna ignore that. But there we go, some Beach Boys. So yeah, my Beach Boys collection just kind of really went up this month, which is cool. So we'll know. Who knows? Maybe we'll one day have all the Beach Boys albums. Not for a long time though. Next, we're already done with B's. We're on to the C's. And we are going to talk about some Cheap Trick. I picked up 2 albums from them, both from the 80s. So I have 1980s, All Shook Up. And then I also picked up One on One. So this is an interesting because this is actually produced by George Martin. Yes, the George Martin. And I don't know, like, I'm not a Cheap Trick expert, so I don't know where these 2 albums tend to land amongst most fans, but I will say this album's okay. Which is funny because, again, you hear George Martin's name and you think, oh my god, this is gonna be great. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a pretty average sort of rock album from the band. But that said, there's still some songs that were fine. Stop This Game, Just Got Back, Can't Stop It, but I'm Gonna Try, World's Greatest Lover, Love Comes and Tumbling Down, Go for the throat, parentheses, use your own imagination. Like, there's some good songs, but I don't know. I just don't feel like George Martin fits Cheap Trick, honestly. Kind of, and there's moments where s- they they kind of go for a Beatles aesthetic, but I don't know. Maybe I think they lean a bit too heavy on the Beatles sound. I hear sometimes Cheap Trick gets kind of compared because they do borrow some aspects from the Beatles. But I don't know. I think they kind of dialed it a bit too much. Kind of lose a bit of their their unique edge, if that makes any sense. But again, it's not a bad album, but just not probably not my one of my go-to Cheap Trick albums. But again, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I found myself really enjoying One on One. Of course, we have a different producer. We have Roy Thomas Baker, of course, the good Queen producer. And yeah, I thought it was a really good album. I think Roy kind of fits Cheap Trick a lot better. And you have some great, more just good old pop rock, power pop at its finest. Really, there's only one song here that I thought was just okay, and that was track 10. I want B Man. Wait, I want B Man. I just realized what kind of title is that. But all the other songs, because there's 11 songs in total, and I think there's some really good stuff here, some really underrated stuff. So again, I don't know where this lands for most Cheap Trick fans, but I'm I'm a big fan of this album. Surprisingly, even I was shocked too. But hey, there you go. We all hear things differently. Okay, and this is the last C. Not too much to say in the C category, but it's another pretty well-known band, and again, I've been buying quite a bit from this band in this year, and we have Chicago with Chicago. This is six. This is Chicago 6, yeah. V1 is 6. Okay. Oh, hello. Hi. Good to see you. Glad you can be here. All right. We're just talking about Chicago right now. We're not too far. We're only half an hour into this live stream, basically. So there's still a lot to get through. But glad you can be here today. All right. Next up. So yeah, Chicago 6. So like I said, I have a fair shake of Chicago albums now. I have the debut album, I have Chicago or Chicago 2, if you want to call it that. Then skipping a few, I have Chicago 7, 8, 10, 11, and 17. So, yeah. So this is still in the early period with Terry Kath, and another pretty good album. Again, I'm becoming more of a fan of Chicago in this year, I will happily say. This album had Just You and Me, which is I think was a big hit, was a big single for them, which is great. Jenny, What's This World Coming to? Something in This City Changes People. Hollywood, Terms of Two, and Feeling Stronger Every Day. And there's a couple like demos and a bonus song featuring Al Green, surprisingly, which is interesting. Um, but again, I dig the Chicago sound. Again, the horn is great. Terry Kath's guitar is great. And yeah, some good songs here. Don't have much else to say, but it's Chicago, so I'm gonna dig it. I'm gonna dig it. All right. So again, I guess my goal now is to try to get all the Terry Kath albums at least. I don't know if I'll get any more besides those, though. All right. Nice live stream, bro. Thank you. Never liked Chicago. Yeah. Yeah, Chicago kind of has a very mixed opinion. Some people love them. Some people just aren't into them. I have one friend who's not into Chicago, so you're not alone. All right, we're entering D now, and we have a live album. Yeah, I picked up a live album, which is very rare for me. But when I show the band, it'll kind of make sense. But we have Deep Purple. This is live in Rome, 2013, ironically released in 2019. But yeah, so this is a kind of very plain cover, honestly. It's one of those cardboardy looky thingies, which is, kind of dull, honestly. But it's all about the music, I guess. And pretty good. Again, I'm this is like it's like more later period Deep Purple, which, it's fine. It's pretty good still, don't get me wrong. But again, it's a live album. So I just bought it purely because it has Deep Purple on it. And I'm a big Deep Purple fan. So I kind of just got it just for the namesake. So I don't know if I'm going to play this too often, but I will say the playing is still really good. This is with Steve Morse on guitar. Ian Pace, of course, is still killing on the drums. Don Airy still good on the organ, and Ian Gillan still delivers a very solid performance vocally, even though he's past his prime at this point. But yeah, again, not much else to add to this one. It's a fine live album, but if you're a casual Deep Purple fan, you don't need to get it, if that makes any sense. All right, now big shift from Deep Purple. Now we're going to something a bit more on the lighter side. I got some Neil Diamond, and I got Heartlight. This came out at 82? 82, yes. So, yeah, I don't know where this album lands with Neil Diamond fans. I'm not too versed in his discography, and this is him kind of in the 80s now. I can see people not liking this one because the music is a bit more, I guess, schmaltzy and definitely more, almost has a more adult contemporary sort of vibe, which I can see people not really gravitating towards. And it does have a very a little bit of an 80s production, not too heavy. There's just a lot more keyboard on it, more synths, not like synths, but more like your more cheesy synth sounds. But I'm a sucker for that sound, so I actually really like this album. Um, I mean, one of the reasons I got this is because I actually knew the title track. If you've been following this channel, you know I talk about that infamous infomercial, and of course, this song was part of it. And I just got it for the sake of the title track, and that's a great love ballad. But man, I'm a sucker. I was a sucker throughout this entire album. I really enjoyed every song, honestly. Again, it has that very cheesy sort of early 80s ballad type of thing, but I love that sound, so it does not bother me whatsoever. But again, I can see where some people will have an issue. But hey, more Neil Diamond for me at least. All right, we're done with D's. I don't have any E's, but I do have one F. And that is a very interesting one. So, of course, if you're a Judas Priest fan, then of course you know Rob Halford. And no, I'm not talking about a Judas Priest album, but I am talking about a Rob Halford project he did when he was out of the band during the 90s. And that is a band he called Fight. And this is their second album right here. And it's called A Small Deadly Space. So it's pretty much Rob trying to go for a more modern metal sound. Basically, by this point, Pantera was all the rage, and so he wanted to go something more on that line. And it's actually not too bad. Again, I won't say this is essential listening. Like, unless you're a massive Rob Halford fan, then maybe check it out. But I thought it was a pretty decent. I haven't heard the debut album, so we'll see where I land with that if I ever listen to it. But standout songs were I Am Alive, Mouthpiece, Legacy of Hate, Never Again, Gretna, Green, and Beneath the Violence. There's some good guitar playing still, and again, Rob still sounds okay, but maybe there's like a little bit of a generic edge that kind of bugged me a little bit. But still, solid, but again, not really essential. And now we have some J's. Yeah, we're skipping quite a bit again. So I know my buddy Nick will be happy because I know he's a big fan of this band. And the band is Jefferson Airplane. And I actually found this album, Volunteers. And I've usually seen a lot of people usually rate this album pretty highly, usually seen as one of their best albums, aside from Surrealistic Pillows. And you know what? I'm going to agree with that. This is probably one of the better Jefferson Airplane albums I've heard. Of course, I do like Surrealistic Pillows, but I haven't really heard an album that quite lived up to that one. But then I got to this one, and this was definitely a lot stronger for me. I think the songs were a lot more immediate. They weren't too psychedelic, which is what my big problem with some of Jefferson Airplane stuff. That sometimes they go a little too out there. Um, but here it actually is a lot more conventional, more normal, if you will. And I usually am lukewarm on the male singers of the band, but I think they sounded this is probably the best they've sounded where it actually wasn't too distracting, where I wasn't checking out. And Grace Slick doesn't really sing too much on the album, but still it sounds a lot more together, if that makes any sense. So songs that stood out were "We Can Be Together," "Good Shepherd," "The Farm," uh, "Hey Frederick," "Turn My Life Down," "Eskimo Blue Day," and the title track. So very much stronger album. This could potentially be my new favorite Jefferson Airplane album. Again, that and Surrealistic Pillows, they could potentially battle each other out, but very happy with this one. Now we have some more Jethro Tull. That's right, some Jethro Tull I picked up. Again, I've said I'm not the hugest Jethro Tull fan, and yet I can't stop buying their CDs. I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, so I actually found their debut album. This is from 68? 68, I think? Yeah, 68. And this is when, of course, they're still in that blues rock sort of beginning, although you still have the flute. It's very fascinating how the flute was always a mainstay in the band sound. But yeah, like I said, more bluesy. Definitely not the more proggy sound that we know them for later down the road in the 70s. Excuse me. And pretty decent debut. So of course there's some bonus songs too, which again I won't talk about too much of, but songs that I really liked were "My Sunday Feeling," "Beggar's Farm," "Move On Alone," "It's Breaking Me Up," and "A Song for Jeffrey." But there's only one thing that really brings the album down a little bit is the fact there's quite a bit instrumental tracks on here, which are fine, but again, not really stuff I will go back to on their own. But I will say, still a pretty interesting listen to hear the band this early in their career. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and talk about a slightly later album. We're going to 1974, and we have War Child. Yeah, not definitely a much to me a little stronger album than their debut, which goes without saying. But I thought it was a pretty strong album. Of course, this is following up a Passion Play, which is very dense musically, but here they're kind of bringing it back a little bit more. I know there's a bit of history in terms of the production. I think if I remember correctly, I think Ian had a whole other album plan, but he decided to scrap it last minute and just quickly replaced it with the songs from here. But that aside, I still think it's a pretty decent album. Um, Standout songs were "War Child," "Queen and Country," "Ladies," "Backdoor Angels," "Sea Lion," "Bungle in the Jungle," which is kind of a little bit more of the sillier song, but it's actually kind of catchy. And the last song was that I really enjoyed were "The Third Hurrah." So there we go. That is Jethro Tull, "War Child." Will I buy more? Who knows? Time will only tell. But we are done with the J's, and now I'm going to move on to the K's. So next we have some Kinks. We have the Kinks' debut from 1964. Yeah, 64. And yeah, this is early Kinks, of course, so they're definitely in that R&B sort of phase in their career, in their early career. And it's still a this is still an interesting listen. There's some songs I did enjoy. Um, So Mystifying, Just Can't Go to Sleep, I Took My Baby Home, And of course, you got to mention "You Really Got Me." I mean, that's by far the best song. But Cadillac was fine, and "Stop Your Sobbing" was all the songs that stood out to me. But again, it has some of that early '60s trope. There's a lot of kind of more covers, and some of the songs weren't as memorable. They're kind of just basic, so they still are quite. They're still kind of finding their way, but it's still pretty notable historically, especially "You Really Got Me." But there's that. That's the Kings' debut. And then going to 1974 again. And I know my friends not Jacob, Jason and Nick are going to be grimacing when they see this album. We have Preservation Act 2. I don't have Preservation Act 1, if you're wondering. And yeah, so again, my friends Nick and Jason, they did a whole series talking about the Kings, and they really do not like this period of the band where they try to go for a more theatrical, going for the more concept album approach, and um and I was just curious to know where I would land in this because they talk so badly of it that I was kind of nervous going into it. And after hearing this album, you know, I wouldn't say it's the worst album I've heard, but I kind of understand where they're coming from because I don't quite get the concept here. And there's a lot of those like interlude things, those announcements I think were kind of a little bit too can't little too how you say a little too jarring, if that makes any sense. Oh, Zeb's here. One of my favorite Kinks albums, along with Part One. Yeah, I think I've heard you talk about this period of the band a little bit, Zeb. And I think I remember you saying you liked this period. For me, I'm kind of lukewarm. There are some songs I think were fine. Introduction to Solution, When a Solution Comes, He's Evil, Mirror of Love, Oh, oh, where is love? Flash's Confession, Salvation Road. Like those songs, I think were the most mm, easy listening. Everything else was kind of a bit too much. I feel like the Kings were kind of really pushing their boundaries, and I think they kind of pushed it a bit too far here for me personally. Um, but it is what it is. Again, I don't think it's the worst thing I've heard. Like I can respect them for going at it, for really going out there. But yeah, I kind of prefer the Kings when they're more pulled back a little bit, when they're a bit more sentimental. Kind of like, like the Village Green, that album's great. Lola, of course. Um, Something else from the Kings. That sort of stuff. I think that's where they excel the most. Like trying to go for the larger concept album, more theatrical, doesn't quite fit them too much. But that's just me. But hey, I was kind of pissed off when I saw your friend drag this down into the mud. Yeah, good old Nick. When he really doesn't like anything, he does not hold back. So that's just him though. But again, I do get where he's coming from. But there you go. I just got it because, you know, just want to experience it for myself. And again, I will say I will one day pick up Act 2. And who knows, maybe I'll find out what the actual story is. But there you go. But still good to see you here, Zeb. All right. Still got quite a lot to get through though. Um but this is pretty interesting. A lot of interesting stuff, I gotta say. Never seen that as a digipack. Yeah, it is interesting. This is how I found it. Just your typical digipack. There's Ray right there. But yeah, interesting. I guess this is part of a collection they did because I have something similar to this. I have what's the album called? Munswell Hillbillies. Very similar, exact same digipack. So I guess it's part of like some kind of reissue they were doing at that time. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. All right. Okay, so these next CDs I'm going to talk about are kind of in the same category. So now let's talk about some Kiss. And it's very, very interesting talking about Kiss, given how we just recently lost Ace Frehley, literally like pretty much almost a week ago now, a little bit over a week ago now. And it's interesting how I picked up a good chunk of these Kiss CDs, and actually 4 of these I picked up, and it was literally the same day they announced Ace's passing. Like, I bought them hours before they announced his passing, which is kind of spooky. Very fitting because it's Halloween. Speaking of which, I don't know if you noticed, but of course I have a little bit of Halloween decorations up. There's a little skeleton here, which you can hardly see, and my light's red this time instead of the usual like purple color. But it kind of fitting the Halloween theme. But yeah, so of course, talking about some Kiss here. This is like 5 CDs kind of related to it. So I'll talk about them real quick, but first, yeah, also a totally underrated Kinks album. Yeah, I did like the album. I know my friend Jason didn't like it, but I know Nick likes it likes it quite a bit because I think Nick likes the more country approach that they did. My friend Jason's not much of a country fan, but I liked it. I thought it was a pretty nice album. But yeah, back to Kiss. So I have their second album, Harder Than Hell. The same year as their debut, 1974. And production wise, yeah, it's a little bit not as polished than the debut. I mean, the debut wasn't that polished either, but it was definitely a lot more cleaner. But I found myself really liking this album. I kind of like the more dirtier sound that they went for on here. It kind of gives it a bit more of a heavier sound. And I think the songs were a lot stronger personally. So this might be my new favorite Kiss album as of now, because every song I really enjoyed. Got to Choose, Going Blind, of course, Parasite, Mainline, All the Way, the title track. Yeah, like I said, every song on here I really enjoyed. Again, Kiss is one of those like mixed bag bands. Some people love them, some people hate them, but I've always had a soft spot for Kiss. And I will be honest, like after Ace's passing, I've been listening to a lot more Kiss lately. And yeah, this is one of the albums I've been hearing. So I got that. But now we have this album. This is a little bit of a later album from 1982. We have Creatures of the Night. Of course, ironically, you have Ace on the cover, even though he really does not play at all here. Because at this point, he was basically out of the band. You still have Paul, you have Gene, and then you have Eric Carr on the drums at this point because Peter was already out too. But yeah, 1982, you have Vinnie Vincent, who's really doing all the guitars here. And I will say, pretty good album. This is another album I really dug. Again, very heavy. Definitely has that early 80s kind of hard rock metalish sort of a sound, but I think they pull it off extremely well. Like the first 6 songs really capture that very high energy, very heavy tone. It does kind of lose me a little bit with the second half, where I think they kind of slow it down a bit too much, but they bring it back up with War Machine. I think that's a very, very awesome closing song. So again, very strong album from the band here, and I know following this will be the last album they would do before they would remove the makeup, and then they have a whole other kind of era. I have one album from that era. I have Animalize. I haven't heard that in a while. So in terms of Kiss albums, that's technically the last one, but that's not all. Like I said, I have some Kiss related albums, and I actually have the solo albums. I have Paul's, and of course we have Gene, and then we have Peter. Now you're probably wondering, where's Aces? Well, I already own Ace's album. I've had it for quite some time now. Actually, I'm gonna try and get it real quick so I can show you, and so that way we can have all four of them together. Give me one sec here. I put it in this drawer back here. Let's see. Here it is. You can kind of see it down there too, which is kind of nice. But here it is. Here's Ace. Good old Ace. Again, rest in peace to him. Let's get all four of them together here. Show them off. And there it is. There we go. The classic lineup back together again. Let me just try to get this centered. Yeah, there we go. Put that on the side. So yeah, it's cool to have all four of them together, because they have a very fascinating history. Because of course they're all released on the exact same day, and it was kind of this weird stunts. There are many reasons. There's kind of a couple possible reasons why they did this. One is to just because of contract, because they were contracted to release solo albums at some point. So they decided to do it now. But the other reason could also be, the band was also starting to lose themselves a bit. And so they thought having their own album would alleviate the tension. Well, we all know that didn't really work too much. But any case, so we all know Aces is the best one. I think a lot of people can agree with that. No question about that one. Excuse me. So what do I feel about the other threes? Well, if I were to rank the remaining, I will go Paul second, just before Aces. And this might be a hot take. Third place, I'm gonna go with Peter Criss. And then in last place, yeah, it was gonna be Jeans. All right, let me talk about it for a bit. So Paul's is probably the most Kiss sounding, which is probably why I liked it. And in terms of vocals, Paul is a pretty good rock singer, and so it just kind of worked. Again, he's not reinventing the wheel or himself, but it's if you like the Kiss sound, then you're gonna like this album. Now, when most people talk about the solo albums, usually Peter gets the most criticism because it's probably, and I will admit, even I agree, it's probably the least sounding Kiss album, mainly because he kind of decides to go for a more R&B, soul, almost Motown approach, which to a lot of Kiss fans was kind of what the hell, because we all know Peter Criss was a pretty good rock singer, especially on songs like Black Diamond. But here it's like complete 180 than what people are used to. But I don't know. Again, this might be my hot take, but I think Peter does a solid job here. Again, I'm not saying all of the songs on here is like, oh my god, this is great. It's like, I don't think Peter was really trying to, outdo his bandmate. He just wanted to do music that he liked, and of course he liked the R&B. He liked the soul, so he decided to go do what he thought was comfortable with. And like I said, I think he did okay with a lot of the songs here. Songs that stood out were "I'm Gonna Love You," "You Matter to Me," "Tossin' and Turnin'." That's the kind of sugar Papa likes, which I'll admit that's kind of a dumb title. "Easy Thing," and "Hooked on Rock and Roll." So again, I get why some people would not care for Peters, but I actually have a little soft spot for it. Again, not perfect. But yeah, ironically, this actually charted the highest out of the four, but it's my least favorite. I wasn't as into Jeans too much, honestly. Now, this comes down to the fact that of all the singers in Kiss, Gene's kind of my least favorite. Now, he's sung some great songs, like, Rock and Roll All Night, Deuce, what else? She, songs like that, like, I think Gene sounds fine. But but that's only because he doesn't sing every song. And I've realized I can only take Gene in very small doses. When you hear an entire album with his vocals, it gets a little grating after a while. And again, it's kind of interesting. It is an interesting listen for the fact that Gene kind of, because people were expecting Gene's to be the most heavy, the most dark, the most menacing album, but not really. I mean, there's definitely some of that here, but he also brings in like an orchestra, which was kind of an interesting choice. And he does. There's definitely a cover on here, which definitely would surprise a lot of people, where he sings "When You Wish Upon a Star," the Disney song. Which when you read about why he chose it, you kind of you get it. Like I can see the sentimentality he has for that track, but when you actually hear Gene singing it, you're like, oh, okay, this is something. It's something, all right. But yeah, like I said, Gene's vocals they get kind of grating after a while, and that's just my opinion. So again, this is my least favorite of the 4 solo albums, but I am still happy to own all 4 of them. They're just an interesting period for the band, and yeah, I think they're kind of worth exploring just to kind of see where you land. In the comments below, let me know which one you preferred. But there we go. That's Kiss. So let me just put these all here. I think we're about approaching pretty much halfway through, and we're not even an hour yet. Well, we're almost an hour. We're 4 minutes in, but still, pretty good timing, I must say. So again, thank you to those people who have been sticking around and watching, even if you're just passing by. Appreciate you just kind of sticking and just kind of listening to me rambling about these CDs here. I know my live streams aren't my forte, because as you can tell, I tend to ramble on and I repeat myself often, but still, show must go on. So we're moving on to the L's. Now, this is probably the biggest departure. We talked about Kiss, which is a rock, pretty hard rock band. But how about big shift to some Lady Gaga? Right, I picked up some Lady Gaga. I've been meaning to check out more of her because I know she's pretty popular. But I never really gave her a chance, even when she was just starting out. So this album came out in 2008, by the way. And there's definitely some songs here I was already familiar with. Of course, I knew Just Dance, Paparazzi I knew, Poker Face I knew, but I don't think I remembered anything else besides that. But I will say, not bad. I'm trying to ease my restrain, my resistance to modern pop music. Well, could you still consider this modern since this was like almost 20 years ago? I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I've softened quite a lot in recent time. So I already mentioned Just Dance. Love Game I liked. Paparazzi's pretty good. I'm still kind of not really a fan of Poker Face. That was a big hit, and even back then I was never a fan of it. And even now still not really that big into Poker Face. But nothing else I can say. This kind of brings it back up. Beautiful Dirty Rich, Money Honey, Starstruck, Paper Gangsta, Like It Rough, and Summer Boy were all pretty nice, pretty good songs. So yeah, maybe we'll check out more Lady Gaga in the future. Only time will tell. All right, we got more live albums here, and these are pretty. I mean, this band is pretty notable. We have Led Zeppelin, and it's probably some. Might be some people who are like, oh my god, finally you picked up these live albums from Led Zeppelin, because they're usually seen pretty highly. And those, of course, we have The Song Remains the Same from the movie of the same name. And then this was released later in 2003. We have How the West Was Won. So yeah, I picked up these two because again, these were recorded during Led Zeppelin's like peak period, and of course they were one of the biggest live acts during that time, and I felt right. I had to pick them up. I'm not gonna go too in depth because again they're live albums, but and it has a lot of the songs you want to hear. But I will say of the two, I think I prefer this honestly over this one. It, it is a longer listen, like it is pretty long, and of course there's a lot of jamming, which I'm kind of hit or miss with, honestly, with Led Zeppelin. But you definitely get more songs that you like to hear. Like this one is like you only get 9 tracks, but this one you definitely get 18 tracks. So you definitely get a lot more here. And of course, the playing is top notch, and Robert Plant definitely sounds really good. John Bonham and John Paul Jones goes without saying as well. But yeah, I think I would recommend this one over this one honestly. But still, this is still kind of essential too, especially if you've seen the movie, which of course we've seen clips of it. Okay, now we're going very far back. We are going to be going back to 19 excuse me 57. Let me go ahead. I'm going to take it. I have some water to say. I'm going to go ahead and drink that real quick because I can feel my throat getting a little dry here. I will say, so far my internet's been pretty good. Normally we start giving out at this point, so that's surprising. Okay, hopefully my throat will be okay. Let's see. I have the 2007 version of Song Remains the Same. That one has 15. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think mine's definitely like an older release of it because you can tell how old it is because it has this like old-fashioned 2-in-1 case they used to do back in the day. You don't really see these types of cases anymore, do you? Not so much. Everyone just goes for the digipack approach now. Oh, the mic. Sorry about that. But I think this will serve. Where was I? Oh yeah, going back to 1957. We got a debut album. We got Little Richard with Here's Little Richard. So yeah, some more rock history right here because of course we all know Little Richard is the one of the founders of rock and roll. Let's see. And of course, got Tutti Frutti, probably one of his big songs ever. Definitely had to get that because of it. Then, of course, you have Long Tall Sally, which has been covered. I know the Beatles covered it too. But yeah, you have other songs that stood out. True Fine Mama, Ready Teddy, Slipping and Sliding, Oh Why, Jenny Jenny. Again, it's a very fun album. I mean, that said, I will say it's 1957, so of course there's still a lot of it's that type of music where it's good for what it is, but obviously I do prefer the more later when rock really starts to evolve. But hearing one of the architects of the genre, I just couldn't pass it up. Just for historical significance alone, it's definitely I think it's worth owning for the collection. Of course, Little Richard. I mean, how can you not? How can you resist Little Richard's? Just look at that. Just look at that face. You can tell he was meant to be a star. All right, but there we go. Let's see, Fat Boy Jewel case. I kind of miss those. Yeah, they do have a little bit of nostalgic sort of feel. I do have some of those types of jewel cases scattered in the collection, but yeah, you don't really see those anymore too much. Anyway, now we move on. Yeah, we still have quite a bit. Where? Let me see. Let me make sure I have the album pulled up first. Okay, it's a bit more up. Okay, found it. Moving on. We're going to go to the Marshall Tucker Band. This is their debut album from 1973. Now, I have another album from them I bought earlier this year. It was Searching for a Rainbow. And I remember I was a little disappointed with it, mainly because I was expecting more of your typical Southern rock. but I think it leaned a bit too much on the country rock, which I don't mind, but I kind of had, I think I had my expectations a bit too high on that one. So I decided to try this one. Maybe this one's a bit more rocking, and it is. And so therefore, I definitely prefer this over Searching for a Rainbow personally. Yeah, I just think it rocks a bit more. So there you go. That's really the big reason. The songs that stood out were "Take the Highway," "Can't You See," which I think is probably their most well known song. "Can't You See?" I remember I did hear it. I was hearing it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that song somewhere in passing." "Losing You," "Ramblin'," and "My Jesus Told Me So." So again, pretty strong album. So don't know if I'll check out any more from them. Again, if you're fans of the Marshall Tucker Band, you can let me know. But still, pretty solid Southern rock album with a little bit of that country. You still get the country rock, but not as much. Okay, excuse me. Now we have another 2-in-1 CD, and a little interesting one. We have Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell with the two albums they did. You have United and You're All I Need. Of course, what's interesting about this, I don't know why, but they list this album first, then this, even though in real life this came out first and this came out. I don't know why they swapped the order. Whatever though. But yeah, of course, I initially just got this because of course I'm a big fan of the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough, which of course that's one of my favorite songs of the 60s. Just a great feel good kind of R&B pop song, and of course Marvin and Tammy sound extremely well together. Um, but might as well check out the two albums. I'm gonna start with United first because that's the one that came out first, and man, I was very impressed with that album. Like again, it was from 1967, and I really dug it a lot. Again, vocally, you're just so good together, and even very, very catchy songs. Very memorable stuff. Like, there's only like maybe two songs I wasn't crazy for, but everything else was just so well done. Um, Sadly, the next one, "You're All I Need," which is of course this one, not as strong. I don't think the songs were as catchy or memorable as United, but still some decent stuff. And again, they still sing it pretty good. But yeah, so I'll say the songs that stood out on all, "You're All I Need," "Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing," "Keep on Loving Me, Honey," the title track, basically. "You Ain't Living Till You're 11," "When Love Comes Knocking at My Heart," "Come On and See Me," and "Memory Chest." So yeah, if you like that Motown R&B souls, then definitely check these out. Yeah, I think they're definitely worth exploring, especially if you like Marvin Gaye. And you get to hear more Tammy Terrell, which she's a fabulous singer. It's a shame that she passed away so soon, so young too. Okay, going back to some metal music now. We're gonna go with Megadeth, and we have "The System Has Failed." This came out 2004. I think this was kind of seen as a comeback. I can't remember. I forgot. It was either a comeback or an end of an era. It was one of those two. And I don't remember. I don't really know where this lands to most Megadeth fans, but I thought it was pretty strong actually. Um, think musically, again, if you like Megadeth, you know that they have great musicianship and they think they do it really good. Dave's vocals, again, acquired taste, but I think he sounds fine. Um, I'd say the first half is really strong. I think there's some very memorable tracks, but then the second half, it kind of starts to lose steam a little bit. You know, I'd say tracks 9, 10, and 11 were not quite up to par as everything else. But I still think it's a pretty decent, very strong Megadeth album. And again, it's been a long time since I picked up a Megadeth album. I guess it's kind of fitting because I know not too long ago they announced a farewell tour and a final album, I think. So I'm definitely thinking of getting that when that comes around. But yeah, I just want to quickly talk about Megadeth for a bit. Okay, now we get to these next four. These next four are from the same artist, and honestly, this is probably the biggest jackpot in this haul here because I found it hard to find his early albums, and that artist is Prince. So I picked up his debut album. Of course, this is For You. And then I picked up his second album, just called Prince. And then we have Controversy. And then, skipping ahead, this was the follow up to Purple Rain. We have Around the World in a Day. So, yeah, definitely happy to get some of these early Prince albums. Again, I have quite a bit already. But not much of his early stuff because I find it hard to find, like I said. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about his debut album. Of course, the most notable thing about the album is the fact that Prince plays everything pretty much. Yeah, he produced it, arranged everything, composed it, sings it. He does the whole shebang. And it's a pretty solid debut. Again, this is still Prince early on, so he's kind of still playing things kind of by the numbers, but still very impressive. In Love is pretty nice. Soft and Wet, Crazy, Crazy You, Just as Long as We're Together. My Love is Forever, I'm Yours. It's a pretty solid start. Again, he's still kind of finding his way, but it's just kind of nice. It's a pretty nice R&B album at the end of the day. Nothing amazing, but it's still a pretty nice listen. But of course, when you get to the next album, you can definitely hear Prince's starting to come through a bit more. So now we have the second album. Very interesting back photo. But, of course, this had a pretty big hit single on here with I Want to Be Your Lover, which I love that song. Just a really catchy, very upbeat sort of number. And yeah, really nice. But then the other songs you have Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, When We're Dancing Close and Slow, With You, Bambi. And then you have I Feel For You, which of course Shaka Khan would make a big hit out of that in the 80s. And a nice closing song with It's Gonna Be Lonely. It's Gonna Be Lonely. So definitely an improvement from the debut, I think. I think the songs are definitely a lot more, they have a much more immediate feel to it. And yeah, I think Prince's songwriting has definitely gone up a little bit. But now we go ahead. We're going to go to this is his fourth album, I think, because I already have Dirty Mind, which was the third album. Now, Controversy. This is when Prince is really leaning into those controversial subjects he tends to sing about, if you know what I mean. I think out of the four, I think this is probably my least favorite, honestly. It's still a fine album, but I don't find the songs as quite immediate as previous stuff, at least stuff that I've heard. But of course, you still have good songs like Controversy, Do Me Baby, excuse me, and my favorite song on here is Private Joy. That's another really good catchy song. Let's Work's fine, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but I actually kind of like the closing song Jack You Off. Kind of it's very dirty, yes, but still kind of catchy. I don't know what to tell you. But there you go. Controversy by Prince. Solid album, but I think it's not quite as, I don't know. I probably need to hear it again, honestly. But then we have Around the World in a Day, which I didn't think was going to be. I actually really did. I did think I was not going to be as into this album because again, this was the follow up to Purple Rain, and so how can you follow that up? The answer is you don't, but you still make a decent album out of it. A very strong album, I should say. Definitely a lot more psychedelic sort of influences here, which I thought was going to be very prominent, but it's actually not. It's not too in your face. There's definitely some more moments where it kind of spaces out a bit, but it always comes back very strongly. Title track starts pretty much sets the tone very nicely. Paisley Park is good. My favorite song, and of course, it was the single "Raspberry Beret." Very nice, very great pop song. America is good. Pop Life was nice. The Ladder, which is great. And then you have Temptation, which is the longest song at over 8 minutes. But surprisingly, I was not bored throughout that one. I thought I was gonna not gonna be into that one, but actually surprised me. Some good musicianship on that. But there we go. So yeah, Prince, awesome find for the month of October. Okay, next we're gonna go to some Lou Reed with Sally Can't Dance. Another album from Lou Reed. It's been a long time since I bought more Lou Reed. Back cover's kind of interesting. Um, this is probably one I need to hear it again because again, I really enjoy Lou Reed a lot. I love Transformer. Berlin is great. New York is nice. But I don't know. This is often another one of his more well-known albums, but I don't know. It didn't quite click this when I was hearing it for the first time. I still like some of the songs, Ride Sally Ride, Animal Language, New York Star, title track, Billy. Like, there's still some nice songs on here, but I just don't feel they quite they're quite as memorable as other songs from other stuff I've heard. Again, like I said, I probably just need to hear it some more times and then it will click for me. But as of now, this is not one of my favorites. But that could change. Next, I'm gonna go for the Rolling Stones. And I actually found an early Rolling Stones album. We have 12 by 5. Of course, if this is an American album, I know the UK was titled differently. But it is what it is. So for a long time I've been avoiding their early period because honestly I'm not huge into their their like very blues rock sort of beginnings because I do like the more later stuff a lot more. But I saw it. I thought why not? Might as well try to get more Rolling Stones in my collection. And I gave it another chance. I've only heard it once. And I did like this a lot more on the recent re-listen. This is still not my preferred era of the Stones, but there's more songs that stood out a lot more. Around and Round, Empty Heart, Time Is on My Side, which is one of the highlights. It's All Over Now, and I also really do like their cover of Under the Boardwalk. I think they do. I kind of like that song. And then If You Need Me, and the rest is kind of like your more typical blues. It is what it is. But like I said, definitely appreciate this one a bit more on this more recent times. But not sure how often I'll play it though. Okay, next three from the same band. We're in the S's, by the way, now. And this is a kind of a follow-up to last month because I bought a 2-in-1 CD of their albums. It had their debut and their second album. Band is Slade. We have Slade, question mark. We have Slade in Flame. And then we have Nobody's Fool. So, did Slade slay? Joke aside. Honestly, yeah, again, these are albums I need to give more listens to because I'm really digging their sound. They kind of in that glam. They're kind of now entering into the glam rock sound, which is what they're known for. And yeah, starting with this album, definitely major improvement from the first two albums. The songs have much more punch to it, and they have a lot more of an anthemic quality to it, and just sounds like a very fun album. How'd You Ride? The Whole World's Going Crazy. I Won't Let It Happen Again. Move Over. Good Day to Jane. Good Day to Jane. Good Day, Good Day. Wanna Wear All Crazy. Mama, We're All Crazy Now. Mama, I think it's supposed to be Mama, We're All Crazy Now. because some they kind of play around with the titles. Um, let's let the good times roll. Feel so fine. So this is a I think this is probably my favorite of the lot, maybe possibly. Very good rock album from the early '70s, and this is pretty good too. I think I've read this is actually a soundtrack to a movie they were in. I have no idea what the movie is about, but kind of like I want to say it's like a fictional version of the band, just kind of doing whatever. I didn't do much research into that, but another strong album. Even though it's a soundtrack album, it's basically a studio album through and through. And again, every song on here was very strong. Like this, like these two could easily be the top one so far. I think still gonna slightly edge to this one just a little bit more because I like the more raw sound. But this is still really good too. Like if you're gonna check out Slade, I'd say check these two out. I think these are probably the best ones I've heard. But in terms of this one, this is kind of when they went down a little bit. This is definitely not as strong as those two. Still some nice songs, but it's kind of more by the numbers. Um, Songs that stood out: Nobody's Fool, Do the Dirty, Pack Up Your Troubles, Get On Up, LA LA Jinx, Scratch My Back, and All the World's is a Stage. So yeah, solid album, but again, a little bit of a step down. So yeah, there's some more Slade in the collection. I know they released more albums, so again, let me know if there's other albums I need to check out from the band. All right, we're getting there. We're getting to the final stretch. Let's try to finish up soon here. That's okay. Next step, Billy Squier with Emotions in Motion. So yeah, now this is my third Billy Squier album I have in the collection now. Um, another pretty good album. Probably my least favorite I've heard so far. But it still has some good rock numbers that are definitely fun to listen to. Um, One thing that made me want to get this is that when I did research, the title track actually has two guests, and those being Freddie Mercury and Roger Taylor of Queen. So it's kind of that was enough for me to go get it. And the song itself, it's actually okay. And you don't really hear Freddie and Roger that much. You do hear him doing backing vocals during the chorus, but not a ton. I do know Freddie would join Billy on another track a little down the road. Hopefully, I find that album because I heard snippets of that track, and I definitely want to get that album. But still a decent rock album. Not as strong as the other two I've heard, but still decent enough. Now, this next one is going to be an interesting topic to talk about. So, of course, we know Meatloaf. We know Bad Out of Hell, hopefully. And when you talk about Bad Out of Hell, you also got to talk about Jim Steinman. And Jim is pretty much the main composer of that album, the main songwriter. And they were planning on doing a follow-up to Bad Out of Hell. But of course, Meatloaf was going through health, both physical and mental issues. And so he took him a long time to get him back on his feet. And so out of impatience, Jim just thought to himself, you know what? If Meatloaf can't be around to sing my songs, screw it. I'm going to sing it myself. And what came out of it was Bad for Good from 1981. And there's Jim right there. So often this album gets forgotten about, mainly because, even back then it was kind of didn't have the greatest critical reception because it's like, songwriting's good, Jim, but you're not that good of a singer. And, yeah. To me, he's okay, but you can't help but hear the album and you're always think to yourself, man, I wish Meatloaf was here. But that said, a couple of these songs Meatloaf would re-record when he would get better. Bad for Good, I know he would redo for Bad Out of Hell 3. Lost Boys and Golden Girls, I know he would do again. Out of the Frying Pan. And in the bonus, and this has two bonus songs, and one of the bonus songs is "Rock and Roll Dreams Come True," which again Meatloaf would do. Um, but yeah, still, it's an interesting listen. What could have been, if Meatloaf had gotten his act together? Even sort of stuff he would do. Now that I think of it. Anyways, but one of the songs I think is kind of worth talking about is the song "Stark Raving Love." I'm not going to spoil it, but if you go and look up that song and you hear the intro, you're probably going to be thinking to yourself, have I heard that before? And you be correct. I'm going to leave it at that. But it's fine. Again, it's not essential, but if you're curious to hear Jim Steinman hold an album on his own, then give it a try. I know he also doesn't sing every song. There's another singer that sings like two of the tracks, but just want to point that out. Okay. After that, we are going to go with the Stooges up next. And I think this is the second album. We have Funhouse. So I actually have a good chunk of the catalog from the Stooges. I have the debut. I have this. And I have Raw and Power. Raw Power? Raw Power. And I dig the Stooges. Never been I don't love them, but I do like their sound to an extent. And this is a pretty out there album. Like there's definitely a lot more of that garage rock, that acid rock, but surprisingly, it kind of works for me. I have to re-listen to the Stooges albums again, but if I'm correct, this could potentially be my new favorite Stooges album. I don't know why. I think musically is just a lot more interesting to me, and just more fascinating. None of the songs I thought were too out there. It actually was pretty solid. Down on the Street, Loose, TVI, 1970 were some of the highlights. But then again, that said, there are some of the songs do go on a bit long. Um, going for like 7 minutes at most, which can take a bit, which sometimes it goes on a bit too much. But still, I kind of was entertained for the most part. So again, after we listened to the Stooges again, but I thought it was a pretty solid album. Was that produced by Todd Rundgren? I don't think so. I think Jim was pretty much producing his own stuff at this point, or at least co-producing. Let me just double check. It says all songs written by. Let me just. I mean, let me check the last page. I mean, Todd Rundgren is playing guitar. It mentions that, but yeah, okay, yeah, I found it. Yeah, it was. I mean, he co-produced it. Like Jim and Todd co-produced the album, so he was still involved at this point and still providing guitar. So there we go. Answers that question. All right, thank you for that. All right, we still got. Yeah, we don't have too much left. We have just enough to fit in one hand now. All right, I know. I don't know if we'll see if Daryl from this CD rabbit hole is going to watch this, but I know he'd be happy to know that I picked up another album from the Sundays. All right, so the Sundays, again, going back to that more dream pop sort of feel. And I think, was it last month or the month before where I picked up their debut, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. And they only released 3 albums, and this is their final album. This came out in 1997. And I really enjoyed their debut. Like, I was very surprised. Like, I really enjoyed the vibe. Just the tone of all the songs just really spoke to me. So I was really had high hopes for the third one. And it's still a pretty good album, but I definitely do think it's a bit of a step down. Excuse me. There were some songs I didn't find as memorable. And 12 songs, which is kind of average, 42 minutes. So yeah, not that bad. But again, just some of the songs I just kind of felt it went in one ear, then went out the other, which kind of a shame. But again, not bad. How many songs did I star? One, two, three, four, five, six, about eight. So still a good ratio. The only songs I don't. So yeah, there's only four songs I didn't quite enjoy. So the songs that stood out were "Summertime," "Homeward," "Folk Song," "I Can't Wait," "Cry," "Leave the City," "So Much," "Monochrome." Those are the songs that really stood out to me the most. So yeah, solid album, but I guess you can kind of hear that. Yeah, they didn't have much else after that. Of course, they break up after it too. All right. Hey, I bought that Jim album cheap. Heard it once and gave it away. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's not. Yeah, it's not. Like I said, it's not essential listening. We got Jason. Hey, good to see you. Um, for an hour. I'm an hour and a half in, and I'm almost done. Just going through these remaining CDs here. Of course, I'll recap. I'll do a little recap at the end of this, just in case, just so you can see what you missed out. But we're gonna keep going. These next three are from the same band, project. I don't know what you would call them. So I've heard this group get brought up from time to time, but never really thought much. Um, got Tangerine Dream. This one is called Phaedra, I think. So this came out in 1974. And 1975's Rubicon. And I even picked up 76's Stratosphere. Ooh, nearly dropped it. And again, I've heard the name before, but I have no idea what they do. And I had no idea what to expect going into it. So, and I did research. I looked up like what are the best Tangerine Dream albums, and these three tended to be the big three, at least in terms of the early stuff. And so, after hearing this stuff, after hearing these three, I'm like, okay. And it turns out that it's basically ambient music. So, yeah, it's it's very electronic, and that's the thing about Tangerine Dream. They were very influential in the electronic music scene. They were really pushing the boundaries with like looping and sequencing, all that stuff, and just really all about creating like a vibe almost. So they pretty much have left their mark in music in that side of the music scene. But for me, is it something that I enjoy? Um, kinda. Like again, it's ambient music, so at the end of the day, and so it's really gonna depend if you're gonna jive with this. Um, are you either gonna be really laser focused, or are you gonna be asleep through most of it? And I didn't fall asleep through any of it, but I will say it's kind of like, it's fine, you know, it's good music to play in the background. Um, but in terms of like stuff I'm gonna listen to, like, oh my god, I want to listen to that Tangerine Dream album. Not so often, honestly. Again, again, it's fine for what it is. I can respect its influence, but it's just not going to be something I'm going to go back to too often. But that said, I know Tangerine Dream have released a crack ton of albums. Like, if you go on the Wikipedia page, like, oh my god, there's so much, and they're still going. Um, I think I don't know, like it goes like hundreds of albums, man. Like, geez. But that said, I know they would change their sound a bit, and I think in the '80s they actually would go switch to more conventional, more accessible music. So who knows? Maybe one day I'll check that era out. So if there's Tangerine Dream fans who are familiar with that period of the band, let me know. Maybe I'll enjoy that a little bit more. But again, those are just my opinions on these three. Again, not much else to say, but yeah, I mean, the album covers are kind of cool. I'll give them that. They kind of catch your attention. Let's see. Looking like from the comments, you got something from the Kings and Chicago. Yep, very true. And I'll show that in the recaps. You're definitely gonna get a kick out of the Kings. And that's okay. That's okay. Again, I did it pretty early in the morning, so hey, Tangerine Dream. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd be a fan of Tangerine Dream. Yeah, all classics. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I got doing the research. Like those three are usually the big three. 10 out of 10, okay. And 9 out of 10. Right. Okay. He's a brilliant album from 1972, a double. Okay. It's a double. Yeah, yeah, I could see Steven Wilson saying that. He'd seem like a Tangerine Dream fan. Anyway. Okay, we're down to the last four. Okay, next we got a notification. Next we got where is it? It's another one of my very underrated bands from the 70s. We have Uriah Heep, Return to Forever from 1975. Yeah, pretty cool to get more Uriah Heep. It's been a while. Especially, it's been a while since I picked up something from the 70s. I have a good chunk of the 70s period, but not everything. I do want to get all the albums with David Byron on lead vocals. I know I think I'm missing like maybe two or three. I think I have to look again, but pretty solid album. You can kind of hear this. They're starting to lose a bit of steam. I will say there's definitely not as many strong songs on here. Some of the songs are kind of just fine, but nothing too incredible. Another notable thing is the first album with John Wetton on bass. Of course, he had just left. Of course, he was out of King Crimson, but now he's in Uriah Heep now, which is kind of nice. You don't notice the bass too much, personally. To me, I don't really hear it as prominent, but I'm sure he's holding down the fort well. The title track, easily the best song on here. Great opening song. Shady Lady was pretty good. Beautiful Dream, Showdown, and A Year or a Day were pretty solid. But the rest of the album was kind of just typical 70s rock. Nothing to write home about. So overall, decent album. But again, you can kind of hear that it's starting to not be as great. But in any case, it's late, but not too late. Very true. All right. Next, we got, and never got into Uriah Heep. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, people usually criticize Uriah Heep. I've heard people say they're like the poor man's Deep Purple, but I don't think that's true. I don't really subscribe to that sentiment. They don't really sound like Deep Purple to me. All right. Anyway, next we got Van Halen. We got Balance. Man, that album cover is terrible. That's very disturbing. But anyway, so this is from 1995. This is very late in the career. This is with Sammy Hagar still in the band. This might be the last one with him. Maybe second to last. I forget. But yeah. So I think at this point I only need one more album in order to complete the discography for my collection. It is, I think the last time I need to get is their final album from 2010, 2012, somewhere in the 2010s. It was their reunion with David Lee Roth, I think. So I just need to get that, and then I'm good with Van Halen. So yeah, my thoughts on this album. It's fine. You know, it's Van Halen in the 90s. It's what you expect. Some fine songs and then some generic songs. So the songs that stood out were The Seventh Seal, Can't Stop Loving You, which I think was a single, Amsterdam, Big Fat Money, Not Enough, Take Me Back, and the final song, Feelin'. And another thing that holds the album back is the fact that there's some instrumentals, which I'm kind of like fine, whatever. But and also it's 53 minutes, so it's kind of pushing the length a little bit, especially some of the songs. But it's it's an okay album, but you know nothing amazing. Again, they're kind of starting to go past their prime. But yeah, that's that. Well, I only have two more albums to showcase, and they are both soundtrack albums. Before I continue on, uh, I know you don't know Uriah Heep. I didn't expect you to know. They're kind of a more they're, they're definitely not one of the eight like the S tier bands of the 70s. I guess you can kind of put them more in the B tier. But hey, I love them. But not sure if you be into them. But it's what it is. Yeah, the album covers. That album covers very disturbing. It's the 90s for you. Sometimes the 90s rock bands really wanted to go for the more edgy, creepy vibe. So back to the soundtrack albums we have left to talk about. We got very different movies. They're both animated films, by the way. So the first one, we got Aladdin. Of course, the great Disney film. Of course, we have Robin Williams as the genie. And, as probably my favorite Disney song of all time, of course, is A Whole New World. Love that song. Again, like I said, all-time favorite Disney song, no question. And then you have all the other classic songs like One Jump Ahead, Friend Like Me, Prince Ali, all the classic stuff. And of course, you have the score. So your typical soundtrack. But again, Whole New World was the selling point. And then a big flip. We got Shrek 2 on CD. Yeah. So I literally only got this because it has, the holding out for a hero song, of course, from the movie, which is definitely the greatest climax to any Shrek movie ever, honestly. Um, and then you have a lot of covers from a lot of temporary stuff. Counting Crows is on here with "Accidentally in Love." Um, David David Bowie makes an appearance with Changes. Uh, Pete York, Tom Waits even is on here. Nick Cave, not Nick Drake, Nick Cave is on here. And then, of course, you have the Eddie Murphy singing "Livin' La Vida Loca," which is, again, was the end of the movie at that point. But yeah, there we go. Shrek 2. Not much else to add to that. And there you go. That's pretty much all the albums that we talked about, all 53 of them. And we were only an hour and 43 minutes in. Lovely. Let's see. I need to get Aladdin, great soundtrack. Yep, I totally agree. Shrek 2 has some good music. I love Accidentally in Love, which got nominated for an Oscar. All right. Good on them. All right, and then here we go. So for Jason, we're going to go ahead. Let's recap every CD that I showed. I'm going to go in reverse order. You'll definitely see some of the questionable stuff here. So again, Shrek 2 soundtrack, Aladdin soundtrack. Then we have Van Halen, Balance. Uriah Heep, Return to Fantasy. Then we have all the Tangerine Dreams with Stratosphere, Rubicon, and Phaedra. Still don't know if I said that right. The Sundays, Static and Silence, which I don't think I actually said the title when I was talking about this earlier. Okay, Jim Steinman, Bad for Good. Billy Squier, Emotions in Motion. Then we have all the Slade albums with Nobody's Fool. Then we have Slade and Flame. And then Slade, question mark. The Rolling Stones, 12 by 5. Lou Reed, Sally Can't Dance. Then we have all the Prince, Way Around the World in a Day. Controversy. Prince, self-titled. And then Prince's debut, For You. Megadeth, The System Has Failed. Then we have this 2-in-1 with Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell with United and You're All I Need. Marshall Tucker Band, self-titled debut. Little Richard. Here's Little Richard, his debut from 1957. Led Zeppelin. Song Remains the Same, live album and soundtrack. And then How the West Was Won, live album. Again, Led Zeppelin. Lady Gaga, The Fame. Again, I don't think I said the title when I was talking about this earlier. And then we got all the Kiss related stuff. We have the solo albums from Peter Criss, Paul Stanley, and Gene Simmons. And then still on the Kiss train, we have Creatures of the Night. And then we have their second album, Hotter Than Hell. Again, rest in peace, Ace Frehley. And then I forgot, and I accidentally skipped this. We have the Stooges, Funhouse. And then here are the two Kinks album, Jason. We got the debut, and we got Preservation Act 2. Yeah, I wasn't into this album, so don't worry. So there you go. Then we have the Jethro Tull, War Child, and their debut. This was. We have Jefferson Airplane, Volunteers. Then Fight, A Small Deadly Space. Neil Diamond, Heartlight. Deep Purple, Live in Rome, 2013. And here's the Chicago album, Chicago 6. Then we have the Cheap Trick, One on One. And then All Shook Up. And then we have the Beach Boys. Finally got more of their early stuff. We got these 2-in-1s. We have Little Deuce Coupe and All Summer Long. And then, of course, we got the first two albums with Surfin' Safari and Surfin' USA. And then almost there, we have Badfinger, Magic Christian Music, Aerosmith, Rockin' a Hard Place. Then we have two AC/DC albums. We have Black Ice and Blow Up Your Video. And then finally, we have 10cc, sheet music. All right, there you have it. We got through all those albums in less than 2 hours. Very impressed with myself. Any case, oh man, Preservation Act 2. Your collection of bad albums is complete. Well, I don't have Act 1 yet, so maybe I still gotta get that at some point, just so I can complete the 2. Because, Act 2 kind of feels lonely without Act 1, does it? So I gotta make them feel better. Anyway, so other than that, so again, as always, a lot of variety, which is to expect here. A lot of great polls, I think. And yeah, I don't have much else to say about any of that. So yeah, so anything else that I have in mind? So I don't know when I'll be able to record videos like normal. Again, I have to wait until I can get a new conversion thing, just so I can plug my mic into my phone. Because again, for people who are, just to kind of recap, especially the people just showing up, my phone, I got a new phone recently. Now, where did I put my phone? Oh my god, I literally have my phone to the side. Oh, there it is. I found it. So I literally got a new phone, but because I got a new phone, the connector is different, and so yeah, I have to work around that. So we'll see. Hopefully by next month, I'll be back to recording videos like normal. Don't know. Yeah. So there's that. So besides any of that, any other announcements I gotta make? Nope. I think I am pretty much good here. All right, but then we have like, well, again, I could probably stay for another 10 minutes. So if anybody has anything else to say, then I'll wait around for that. But again, just gonna quickly plug in all the other stuff I have. So of course, if you want to support this channel, please make sure you check out the Patreon page, and you can. I do have a tip jar as well. If you want to go there instead, you can basically it's called Buy Me a Coffee, basically. So if you want to check that out and just throw a little tip in there, then that's fine too. Whatever suits your boat. But yeah, and of course on my Patreon page, if you want to get early access to um, any CD or anything that's going to be joining the collection, you'll get first notice, and yeah, that's pretty much everything else. So gonna go. So just a few people to thank. We have Raul. I think hopefully I said your name right. Raul, who joined in and kind of was the first one to comment. And of course, Zeb. Thank you very much for all your comments, and thank you, Jason, for coming in when you did. Again, no worries of being late. Can I ask your thoughts on Anatomy of Tongue in Cheek? Oh yeah, that's from the album exchange, which we never really did. Well, at least me, Nick, and Scott never did. But um, honestly, I have no idea if we're gonna do it. If I'm gonna be honest, but if you really want to know my thoughts on that, I do have it somewhere. If I remember correctly, it's because I did hear it. And I did write notes. I had notes ready for it, but if I remember correctly, I remember I liked it. It was a pretty solid album. Um, I can't tell you the songs that stood out to me at the moment, but I remember I had a decent time with it. I don't love it, but there were some good rocking moments on it. Um, I they were they're a Christian punk band, and yeah, I, I I mean honestly, the Christian messaging got a bit too much at times, but it wasn't too bad. But overall, I had a Anatomy of Tongue in Cheek. I thought it was a pretty solid album. So there you go. Those are my now you know. Now you hopefully that can you at least you know your thoughts on your album. Should I just spoil the thoughts on the other albums while I'm at it? First off, what were the other albums? Um, I know Scott's was The Verve, and I remember liking that one. Thought that was a pretty decent album. Um, was it my favorite? I'm not sure. Again, I haven't heard those albums in a while. So what else was there? I think I wrote a note. Oh, Slippery When Wet. Slippery When Wet. Of course, I've had that. I've had Slippery When Wet for a long time in my collection, and actually, I'll change my answer. I think Slippery When Wet is by default the best, my favorite, mainly because it has those big hits. Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name. Those songs kind of elevate the album a bit more. Again, I wouldn't say I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan, but it's it is what it is. They've had some good hits. I do like the hits quite a bit. But again, they're just not my go-to type of '80s rock band. But I do like the album. And then Razorlight, that was Adam's pick, and I thought Adams was pretty good too. I actually did like Adam's choice. It had a very, if I remember correctly, it had a very almost post-punk sort of sound. A lot of it reminded me a little bit of Joy Division, which kind of made me enjoy the album a bit more. Again, I'm still remembering what else is there. Yeah, I don't have much else to add to that. It was a nice, enjoyable album. I say all the albums that were suggested this month I thought were pretty solid, just at most. Um, I think Nick. Oh yeah, Nick. Nick was the Harper's Bazaar. Yeah, I think Nick was Harper's Bazaar, the one with Ted Templeman in the band, and that was another one I thought was pretty okay. Might be my well, no, I was gonna no. It was not my favorite, but I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it, but again, I mean, yeah, Nick, I think you kind of said it. You kind of said it. It was yeah, it had a very bubblegummy sort of sound to it. Um, their cover of 95th Bridge Song. I think I remember hearing. I think I remember thinking it was decent. Um, but again, you can't really match Simon and Garfunkel, can you? But I remember thought it was fine. It was not really my favorite type of 60s pop, really. Got a bit too clean. And then, of course, yeah, I did Private Dancer. Like, I mean, you can probably guess my thoughts on that one. Otherwise, I wouldn't have suggested it. But yeah, Private Dancer, great. Love Tina Turner. So there you go. So those are my brief overview on my thoughts on those on the last C exchange. I know we got another one in the works. I still need to finalize my notes. So at some point I need to take care of that. I should have time. I should have some time today to do some of that. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. I think from that point, I think I'm gonna start closing up here. So again, to the people who watch this in the chat, once again, thank you very much for sticking around. And for the people who, even the people who came, but then they had to leave, still appreciate you stopping by. And if you're watching this replay, because it will be available, again, make sure you comment below your thoughts on any of the albums that I showed, that I showcased. And I look forward to knowing what you think. And of course, any recommendations is always welcome. But that said, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, support the channel. And until then, hopefully soon, we'll be back to normal programming like normal. I kind of took a little break, honestly, especially after the 5-year anniversary ranking video. That took a lot of time. So I kind of took a little break. So in November, we should have more videos planned. And I definitely got some good ones in the works here. So thank you again for watching. And this is Bryce Cisneros signing off. Take care and goodbye for now.